I gotta wonder though, if we did a fan poll vote, who's more handsome? Would it be you or Jimmy G? You have my vote all day.
Thanks. I don't think my wife would agree with that.
Hello and welcome to Monkey Night Fight, folks. I'm Connor Rowntree. That's the fantasy point man, Joe Dolan. We got Thursday night football tonight. A pretty interesting game, all things considered. Two teams that need a win to stay not so much relevant and stay alive, but to stay threatening as a team that you wouldn't want to be playing heading into the playoff week. I mean, Joe, week 15 takeaways though. It's almost playoff time.
It is. It's almost. I mean, we're here in playoffs for fantasy. It's almost playoffs for the NFL, and obviously the entire world's burning down. So that's good news. So the NFL decided it's going to change its COVID protocols, which, frankly, I think we're probably headed that way as a country. That is a discussion for another day, though. But look, we'll see if hopefully this game tonight is unaffected further by the protocols. I mean, we guys go on and off the list every single day, so God knows what's going on from our perspective. But yeah, I mean, I think this is an interesting game tonight. I don't think they're two teams that people consider Super Bowl contenders. I know earlier in the season, before the Titans roster ended up getting decimated, they were being considered a Super Bowl contender. And now the question becomes, how much healthier can the Titans get before they get into the playoffs? This is huge for them because if they win this game, the Titans are in great shape to essentially take the AFC South. They essentially have at this point a 2-game lead on the Indianapolis Colts with 3 games to play. They're 1 game up in the standings, but they have the tiebreaker. Indianapolis has a tough game road against the pissed off Cardinals this week. So you've got a really good opportunity here if you're the Titans to make a to make a push here and win the division. And we'll talk about their personnel usage here and what they're doing because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I think that's probably part of their thinking.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be an exciting game. And on the San Francisco side of things, obviously, they need a win. Minnesota getting that big win in Chicago, not beating the Bears is a big deal, but getting that big win to push them up into that final wildcard seed in the NFC. So obviously, things are getting a little tighter. It's coming up to the end of the season. We have the extra week, so I get to see your beautiful face for an extra week this year. But why don't we get into it?
That face is going to be more sullen than ever by week 18. It's these weeks are taking their toll, Connor. I gotta tell you.
I gotta wonder though, if we did a fan poll vote, who's more handsome? Would it be you or Jimmy G? You have my vote all day.
Thanks. I don't think my wife would agree with that.
Jimmy Garoppolo coming in at 239.5 passing yards. Ryan Tannehill 205.5. Not the highest passing yard numbers. Usually on Monkey Night Fight, when we see these primetime matchups, these numbers are up in the 260 range. Yeah. But two quarterbacks that not necessarily throwing the ball so much. I mean, Dante Foreman did a great job last week. Obviously as playing understudy for Derrick Henry, going for over 100 yards on the ground. And that rush attack for Tennessee is still averaging over 140 yards per game in their top 4 rush attack. So I see why Tannehill's only down around 205. I see why.
Yeah, I do too. This one, I got to be honest with you, Connor. This one is so difficult for me. I'm going to take the more with Garoppolo.
The more?
Like
less more.
Yeah, that one. And now look, Rob, what is it? 235.5?
239.5 for Jimmy.
Okay. G. Oh, well, here's his last 4: 230, 299, 296, 235. If this game is close, I think Garoppolo's going to have to throw the ball quite a bit. And 26, 30, 41, 23 are his last few passing numbers. I think he's going to go more than that total, though I don't feel great about it. I like the more for Jimmy Garoppolo. Now let's talk Tannehill. Because they are playing Julio Jones in this game. And they could get A.J. Brown back as well. I have no clue. And I'm going to get so burned on this because if there is a Julio prop on MKF, I'm taking the under on all of them. All the logic is to take the under. Last week, all the logic was to take the more for Justin Jefferson. That didn't work out. But all the logic says take the less on Julio Jones this week. But Tannehill, if he has Julio and AJ Brown, I'm inclined to 205.5 is low. I'm inclined to say the more on that just by nature of the fact that if he's getting his weapons a little bit healthier, he's going to go up and over this total. However, I mean, his last 3 games, 93, 191, 153. I mean, you'd like to see that number a little bit lower, but I think it has to factor in the fact that Julio Jones and AJ Brown can both play in this game.
Yeah. One thing that kind of is just alarming to me is how good that San Francisco's pass defense is. Obviously only giving up 213 yards a game, top 10 pass defense in the NFL. So that's a little alarming to me. And I see with Foreman performing well, like they might just try to pound this ball, run the clock, get out of there. They're on the road. Don't want to get that crazy crowd involved. I'm going to have to take the less. I know it's a low number, but I see the game script. Like I think 200 yards is the number and I'm not comfortable with it, but I think I'm going to have to go combat you, my good sir. On the Jimmy G side, I'm with you. Our good guy Jason posted for us to see here. 2017 Jimmy Garoppolo, his one game versus the Titans went for 381 yards.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a while ago, but
that's a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But one thing I want to note too is George Kittle's presence, right? Because with George Kittle going, Jimmy G has a legitimate check down option that is a full wide receiver at the tight end position. 6 targets last week, 6 grabs, 93 yards. The week before, 15 targets, 13 grabs, 151 and a touchdown. And then 2 weeks ago, we all remember the 181-yard game with the 2 touchdowns. Kind of a segue into his line here. George Kittle, 74.5 receiving yards with 6.5 receptions. I'm going to take more on both of those.
Yeah, they're both high, but I'm going to take more. I mean, it as somebody who has Deebo Samuel in a big money fantasy league, the obsession with I mean, look, it's working. So it's one of those things where, like, I complain about the Broncos using Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, and then Melvin Gordon plays well, and I'm like, well, I guess I can't complain too much about it because it's working for them. But George Kittle, this thing's working. When you have Deebo Samuel, it's frustrating because you're like, can't you throw him the damn ball every now and again? But he is a player who, look, if I were going to the betting window with this on an individual ticket, that is not a player I'm going to be in the market for taking the less than. I'm not going to be taking unders on George Kittle. It's either bet the over or I'm not playing. And that's what all the logic dictates right now.
Yeah, well, I kind of thought that this was really low. 74, the receiving yard number.
The yardage is low to me. I'd be more inclined to take the more on the yardage. I was saying,
because in 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's literally doubled that number in receiving yards. And then 93 the week before, so he blasted it by 20, almost 20. I love that spot, folks. So if you're playing any more or less contests and you see George Kittle, get on it, because that's what Joe and I are here to do, and we like that. We like that a lot. Let's talk a little Brendan Ayuk now before we get into Deebo Samuel. Obviously, you don't want to see him too involved.
Mm-hmm. I like the less on Brandon Ayuk because he's got a matchup with Christian Fulton, who is the Titans' best corner. He's probably going to line up across from him on most of his routes. I'll take the less on Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, that receiving line, folks, coming in at 54.5 yards, so he needs 55 yards to get the more there, and the less is probably the play. For me, it's just Jimmy G kind of is reading George Kittle. If he isn't hitting George Kittle, he's throwing to Samuel. And those are 2 pretty elite options. Can't really blame them.
The Deebo Samuel usage is just utterly shocking to me. And now look, he has scored rushing touchdowns in 5 consecutive games. He scored 6 rushing touchdowns over his last 5 games. Okay. But look at what he was doing as a receiver early in this season, Connor. 12 targets week 1, 9 for 189 and a touchdown. 8 targets week 2. 6 for 93, 10 targets, 5 for 52, 13 targets, 8 for 156 and 2 touchdowns. And then I think this was the Trey Lance game, 9 targets, 3 for 58. Week 7, 11 targets, 7 for 100 and a touchdown, 9 targets, 6 for 171 and a touchdown. And then all of a sudden, he's got 2 targets, 4 targets, 1 target, 5 targets. Back to 5 targets last week. I mean, look, the rushing thing for Debo is cute. I'm still not upset at all. Look, he's scoring touchdowns. I can't knock that. But relying on rushing touchdowns from a wide receiver for fantasy, that is as precarious as it gets. And I know he's been doing it and he's good at it. So they're going to keep using him in that situation. But put the ball in this guy's hands, man, in space, because he can make an impact. I'm just puzzled by it. But I'm glad they look to be trending back to using him as a damn wide receiver last week.
Yeah, no, I think if let's talk about you're obviously Mr. Fantasy Point Man. His line on Monkey Knife Fight, you can get it at 12.5 fantasy points right now. I think you got to smash that more just because of the rush usage. And as you said, he's getting involved. And don't forget, folks, that Monkey Knife Fight's PPR is pretty awesome if you're looking for the mores and things, because it's 1 full fantasy point per reception.
Yeah.
So if he gets 5 catches, that's 5 points right there. A touchdown, that's 11 points without any yards.
So
yards.
The touchdown thing is actually, I'm going to flip it on you, because last week he actually topped this 12.5 with if you take the touchdown away, which is something that has been uncommon for him. He had been sustained by touchdowns the last 5 games. Last week, he actually caught 4 passes for 60 yards and had 29 yards rushing. So even if you take the touchdown away, he has more than this total. So I have to take the more on Deebo Samuel, even though I'd like to see him getting way more targets.
One question I want to bounce off of you, because Deebo Samuel, he's such a hot topic right now with his usage. Do you see him becoming a Swiss Army knife, kind of like a Cordero Patterson type player? Or do you want to see him at wide receiver? Because you kind of seem like you want him at wide receiver, but the usage is effective.
No, I mean, I just want him to get more targets. And I don't necessarily need, look, if a guy is helping you in all these ways, use him in that way. I'm not saying that using him as a runner is stupid. I'm just complaining from a fantasy standpoint. I want him to get more targets. I mean, I'm not saying it's stupid at all. As a matter of fact, I'm saying it's pretty damn clever. I just want him in space more. There is no way, and this was 2 weeks ago against Cincinnati, that game went to overtime. There is no way Deebo Samuel should have 1 target in a game. Get him. He can win downfield. Get him in space. Like there's just no reason for that to happen.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about one of his counterparts now, AJ Brown. Seems like he's getting healthy. His line's 59.5 receiving yards. Oh, man, this is tough. As I said, I just see the rush attack being the way to go. San Francisco's so good in their pass defense. I guess there's targets being back. Julio Jones is expected to play, so you're going to have to be careful. But A.J. Brown for 60 yards, I want that number to be higher so I can take the less comfortably. That's tough, man.
I mean, what 59.5 you said?
Yeah. I'm going to have to take the less, though.
So here's the deal. A.J. Brown hasn't played in 5 weeks. Yeah. He has gone more than this total 3 times. He did it 3 games in a row. That was week 6, 7, and 8. He has not posted more than this total in 2 months. I have to take the less.
Yeah.
I have to. I mean, that's just logic. And I'm not as comfortable doing the less on A.J. Brown as I am on Julio Jones, but let's say less for A.J. Brown.
And this one is one that I'm another one that I really like. Whenever I say that, I'm always wrong. So fair warning, folks. I'm just kidding. Deontay Foreman. I mentioned him earlier in the show, rushing for over 100 yards last week. His line on Monkey Knife Fight, 54.5 yards.
Really?
Now, for my projected game script, that is way too low.
Yeah,
I see San Francisco kind of swarming the pass game and running the ball being key. Foreman has become that piece that they're turning to on first and second down to churn those legs and get those yards. 54.5 is way too low for me. Like, I'm comfortable if that even gets up close to 65, 70. That's where I got him up above 80 yards for tonight's game. That's my projected performance for him, around 80 yards.
Not only has Deontay Foreman crushed this in 2 of his last – now, he did go less than this in one game. That was against Jacksonville. They barely even needed him. Now, keep in mind, he did pick up a little foot injury last week, but there's no indication at all it's going to limit him. He has doubled this line in 2 of his last 3 games. I have to take the more. Have to.
Yeah, no, that's a nice spot right there. And now we get into the really fun part. Joe, what's your prediction for Thursday Night Football? We got a pretty fun game.
I think the Titans might win a close one, 20-17. I think they'll ugly it up enough. I think getting A.J. Brown and Julio back, although I don't trust Julio at all, getting him back and A.J. Brown back, give them a little bit extra firepower. And I think they win this game and push themselves closer to winning the AFC South.
This is one of those games where I'm as a football fan, I'm genuinely interested because you got 2 teams that are going to be playing top, they're going to be playing for their seasons. They're going to be playing for a chance at glory. It's going to be a fun one on the road. And it's almost like, well, I kind of just want to take the underdog with the points and ride.
Yeah.
Yeehaw. But that's not what I'm here to do. In which case, I'm going to take the Niners ever so slightly to edge this one out at home. I see the run game paying dividends for Tennessee. I see them controlling the clock, but I just see too many big playmakers.
Tennessee's at home, by the way.
Oh yeah, right. Sorry. Either way,
which is part of the thought for me. But no, I mean, I think if you were to ask me who the more talented team is, it's San Francisco.
Yeah, I just think there's too many big time playmakers on that offense that one of them is going to make a big play, whether it's Kittle, whether it's Samuel, whether it's Ayuk. You never know. So yeah, I'm going to have to take San Francisco in a bit of a smash mouth game. We'll make it 24-20. There's the prediction for the day. Final drive.
I think that's a fair. This is a very good Thursday night game for our final Thursday night game of the season. Massive playoff implications on both sides.
Yeah, no, awesome time. Joe Dolan, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of covering Thursday Night Football. I can't believe it's our last one. Oh, the memory. Yeah, I'm gonna take the memories with me. But Joe, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. That's Joe Dolan from Fantasy Points. I'm Connor Rowntree, and remember to hit it hard.